Okay, 1, 2, 3. 11.
Synchronized swimming.
Scissors.
Without any further ado, I want to welcome you all to this wonderful occasion. We thank you for your past support and your perseverance. You've probably all heard the expression, good things happen to those who wait. Well, 13 years plus has put that adage to the test. But the good news is that we've proven that adage to be true. We have this amazing building behind us as firm evidence of that. So my name is Peter Shagru, and I'm the president of the Bridgehampton Museum Board of Trustees, a board that is comprised of 15 hardworking, energetic individuals committed to the cause. We have a great board. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Assemblyman Fred Thiel.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the Bridgehampton Museum and the town of Southampton for inviting me to be here today and to participate in this ribbon cutting for the Nathaniel Rogers House. And as Peter said, it was a long time coming, but I think everybody's going to be impressed. Certainly when you look at it from the outside, everybody's impressed. Those of us who are of my age and who grew up here remember when there was a gas station on the corner and the condition that this house was in many, many years ago. And now, as it should be, the Nathaniel Rogers House is going to be one of the pride and joys of the hamlet of Bridgehampton and of the town of Southampton. And it's because of the hard work of so many people. I had the opportunity coming in to talk to Dennis Susskind, who was on the town board then and really was a catalyst for getting all of this going. I know so many of you and the museum board and everybody did so much. The town of Southampton with the Community Preservation Fund. So I just first of all want to commend everybody. I say this a lot with regard to what I do in politics and government, and I was saying it to Mayor Lockheim earlier. He and I had a bill that we were working on that took us 10 years to get done. And one of the things you learn is that it's perseverance and sticking with things that ultimately gets things done in life. And that's certainly what happened here with regard to this project. And I do just want to talk just for a minute or two about the Community Preservation Fund. It's something that obviously, as the author and the sponsor, that I am extremely proud of. And this is another example of where the Community Preservation Fund was able to help. This was a public-private partnership, but the Community Preservation Fund, another bill I might add, that was an overnight sensation that took us 12 years to pass. But since 1998, it's generated $1.7 billion across the 5 East End towns. It's resulted in more than 10,000 acres of farmland and open space being preserved. But what people don't remember all the time and what they don't recall is that, yes, it's for farmland. Yes, it's for open space preservation. Yes, it's for parks and recreation, but it's also for historic preservation. And as we have seen over the last few years, historic preservation is taking a bigger and bigger role in the Community Preservation Fund in projects such as this and projects like Sugarloaf Hill, working with the Shinnecocks to preserve those burial grounds. So we need to preserve our heritage. This is another part of it. And we look back and we think about Nathaniel Rogers and we think, man, that was a long time ago. back at the beginning of the country and all of that. But was it really that long ago? There's this quirky American history fact that I'm just going to relate, and that is President John Tyler was president in the 1840s, and he married Julia Gardner down the road there in East Hampton. Now, President Tyler from the 1840s was born 2 years after Nathaniel Rogers. And President Tyler still has a grandson who is alive today, 95 years old, living in Virginia. So when you think it's that long ago, it's not that long ago in the context of history, in the context of time. And so this is part of our heritage, part of the heritage of the town of Southampton. My congratulations on a job well done. And it is my privilege to be able to present to the Bridgehampton Museum a proclamation recognizing today, August 1st, which is Nathaniel Rogers' birthday, recognizing this in New York State as Nathaniel Rogers Day. And I'm just glad there's somebody who has a birthday in August that's older than I am. So thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Southampton Town Supervisor, known to all of us, I'm sure, Jay Schneiderman.
I was just watching a car stopped at the light, was applauding when Fred was speaking, and I've been driving past this intersection, all my life. Well, I guess not as a kid, but in the back seat when I was a kid, and most of that, I looked at this abandoned, dilapidated in some ways building for, I guess the hopping house for a long time, and always kind of wondered about this place. And then I remember as a young man, Dennis Susskind was on the board over there in Southampton, and they were talking about building like a mini mall here. Right? It was going to be a commercial thing, and that's, they had a proposal into, I guess, the zoning board and the town board to rezone it, and people stepped up. They put some private funds together. It was the beginning of really the early days of that community preservation fund that Fred fought for. And God, what an engine for preservation it has been. And Fred, you must delight in these moments, knowing that and the public too, who voted to support it. But to get that program up and running, otherwise, how would we be able to do things like this if we didn't have the money to do it? So yeah, by the way, our Community Preservation Fund program manager is also here. Lisa Combrink is here. Of course, Lisa's been here a number of years. Before her, Mary Wilson was the director. Mary Wilson was also very involved in this property. And I'm also joined by Councilman Tommy John Schiavone, who himself is he's quite a historian. He was a history professor, history teacher. So I know he loves this kind of thing. It's a great day for me because I no longer have to ask, when is that building going to be done, right? This has been, I've been supervisor 6 years now, and this project was started by boards before me, and Anna Throne-Holtz and Linda Cabot and Skip Peeney, and a lot of supervisors have worked on this. But this was painstakingly restored. I mean, when you get to look inside and see, like all the glass is authentic, every piece of molding is authentic, everything, the balustrades. I think that's a word I probably learned during the construction of this building. Up on the roof, everything had to be lathed and made special order. You can't just go to Home Depot, and get this stuff. You have to make everything. And there's a lot of people. This has been a real community project. People like Robert Morrow, who's here in the second row, who's helped raise funds and personally donated quite a bit. And been really involved in this. I see Mayor Lockheim from Sagaponack down the road. Thank you, Don, for coming out. This is Don Lockheim is here. Our public safety director is here too, Ryan Murphy. Thank you for coming out. Ryan Ryan has been really busy. He's also been our COVID coordinator, and in government, the last year and a half have been really challenging, and sort of how to reinvent everything. And Ryan has been the person sort of telegraphing all the state guidance to the public and working with the town. So he's been really instrumental. But a lot of people contributed a lot to make this happen. At the town, obviously the town board, one of our construction managers is here, Matt Jedlicker. Am I saying that right? Close? Is here. He's been overseeing the project. I don't know, was the contract, is Barry Lipsky, is Barry here? I haven't seen Barry from Lipsky Construction. Did a phenomenal job. So Barry, wherever you are, if you show up, he deserves a lot of credit. He really oversaw this project as a private contractor. And so many people worked so hard to get to this point. We're here. It's done, right? The building is done. It's going to be it's a gem already. As I look out at this intersection and I see the Topping Rose house that was privately restored, that's so beautiful, and the newer building, which is NYU Langone, I think, Robert, you might have something to do with that building. And then we have Militia Park that we just did a really nice restoration to. We've been changing all these intersections and the crosswalks, and thank you again, Fred, for helping with state support for doing these intersections to make it safer. It's all sort of coming together, right? It's really beautiful. All the work is really made this little place in the world just such a beautiful spot. And so many people will learn about history and architecture here at the Nathaniel Rogers House. So congratulations to everybody for making this happen. I'm glad to have played my small role as town supervisor, but it's really on the backs of giants. So thank you all for doing it.
Next up, batting third in the lineup, our wonderful new Executive Director, Nina Rayburn-Deck.
So I'm going to make it very brief so that we can avoid the rain, hopefully. I just wanted to say there are other visionaries here as well. John Eilertson is here, and John was the executive director before me through the entire restoration of this project. Garrett Vreeland in the front row, of course. John Millard as well. Robert Morrow and Dennis Susskind, and these are sort of our original visionaries. And I really the last thing I want to say is that I'm standing on land here where we all live that was at one time inhabited by farmers and migrants and immigrant workers, and before then artists like Nathaniel Rogers and settlers, and before that Shinnecock and people from First Nations. So this space, this land, is really an example of a community story through time. And this restoration really represents many different groups of people coming together, working together through a very challenging project to create something quite beautiful, an architectural gem for this community, but also a place for people to come together in discussion to have a greater understanding about who we've been and who we'd like to be and where we're going. And with that, the way this is going to work, we're going to have a little ribbon cutting after this, and then we'll invite you all into the house. But because, where's Ryan Murphy? Is that Ryan? There you are. Yeah. Because I invited Ryan Murphy, and I did that purposely, because the Delta variant is a little frightening, I'm going to ask everybody to wear a mask in the house. We have masks at the door. I have more in the kitchen area if you need them, even if you're double vaxxed. Outside, you can do as you like. I think we're all okay. But in the house itself, if you wouldn't mind doing that, I'd be very grateful. And finally, what's going to happen is you'll come through and then out the back where you'll have some cake and Prosecco and homemade tea sandwiches by our events committee, which are board members, as they were invented in 1840, which is the date that Nathaniel Rogers purchased this home, in 1839 actually. So they were made by the little sweet hands of our event committee, and I'm very grateful for that because they all look super delicious. And that's it. So thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you in the future when we have some programming and exhibitions up, and for our grand opening in 2022. So thank you. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's the beginning of the next phase. This is just the ribbon cutting, which is the sort of the statement that the end of the restoration has come, but we'll have a real opening in 2022 where we'll open the house, hopefully with an exhibition and to the general public. So we're thrilled. You know, I'm coming in at the end of this 24-hour clock of restoration. I'm sort of coming in at midnight. It's an extraordinary story with many players over many years. There's state money, local money, private money, and institutional money as well. And it's a partnership between the town and this private organization in a way that it's unusual. And it was sort of one of the first relationships to be formed in this manner. How did it all come together? Some miracle of good cheer and passion and people's desire to not let the history of this space go.
Really? It's a lesson in preserving history.
It is a lesson in preserving history and a testament to those who have passion for doing so. And this house actually is not a true restoration to a specific period. It's a restoration of the life of this house, which is a lovely sort of statement about the community itself. This is actually a portrait of Nathaniel Rogers. It's a self-portrait. And the story of Nathaniel Rogers is a very modern story because he was someone who was slated to be a shipbuilder and was injured in that moment of learning how to do that, apprenticing, seriously injured. And he had to pivot and change his career. And he became an artist in, the early 19th century, and a very successful one. And that's a very Hampton story and a modern story. It's sort of in the gig economy, how people are kind of having to reinvent themselves. So this fireplace originally looked like all the other fireplaces in the house. It at some point was removed and sold and replaced with this. And the myth in this whole fireplace is that there may actually be stones from Gardner's Bay, which makes it a local piece. So this was a dining room, and that is a breakfast room that was enclosed. And you're in the federal style of the house. The first, there was a homestead here in the late 18th century, but early 19th century, the house was sort of built by Abraham Rose. This is the portion of the house that he built, the federal style. That side over there, where the ceilings are higher, where the windows are a different shape, that's the Greek Revival part that Nathaniel Rogers added when he bought the house in 1839, 1840. Also a very modern Hampton story. Rogers buys the house in 1839, and then completely renovates it, wraps it around with the Greek Revival front, puts on a second floor, the bedrooms at the top, and the cupola, and made the house that he really wanted to live in. And the last thing I'll say about Rogers, which is what's so interesting also about him, is that when he was injured as a young man, he was treated by a doctor by the name of Sam Rose. Sam Rose, his son, Abraham Rose, owned this house. So Sam Rose treated him across the street. When Sam Rose died, he bequeathed the house to Abraham Rose. He built it, he changed it. And when Rogers was at the end of his life, he didn't know he was at the end of his life, but at the end, in the last 4 or 5 years of his life, he returned to the place where he received all of that healing. And also, Sam Rose is one of the first who introduced him to the art world, bought him brushes, books, introduced paint to him and technique. So it's kind of a lovely coming home story, a very beautiful story about the connection between neighbors and friends and this space.
It's just unbelievable. There's so much history in this house.
It's right. And so the beauty of this house is that it's not a unique restoration to a specific time period. It's the restoration of all the time periods that encompass this house. It's the restoration of this house. And that it's a local story. That's our story. So.
And the Community Preservation Fund really helped you.
The Community Preservation Fund was essential in this restoration. That is their mandate. And you should speak with Lisa Combrink about that, because their passion, their focus, their continued resilience and energy, along with John Arlitzen, who is the former executive director, as well as all of those visionaries and supporters and donors, it's the only reason why this really happened. Restorations don't last for 18 years. They are given up on, they are walked away from. But this represents the passion and the dedication of all those folks.
Hi, this is Southampton Town Supervisor Jay Schneiderman. I'm here at the historic Nathaniel Rogers house with Charlie Martyr of Martyr's Landscaping. Is that the proper name of the company?
Yeah, Martyr's Nursery.
Martyr's Nursery. I've known Charlie
Garden
for
shop.
I've known Charlie for some time, and was very pleasantly surprised last week when Charlie gave me a call and said that he was interested in donating some landscaping to this property. A little bit shocked to find out how much. So it's a really significant gift, about almost $600,000 worth of labor and materials that are going to be donated to this incredible property here at the corner of Ocean Road and Route 27 in Bridgehampton. A beautiful corner where we have the Topping Rose House on one corner, and right across the street we have the Nathaniel Rogers house, which has been lovingly restored. The town purchased this property over a decade ago and started putting it back together, piece by piece, in very detailed historic reconstruction that was recently finished in terms of the exterior of the home and the interior as well. But now the landscaping needs to get done. And Charlie, I can't think of anybody better to have involved here. Charlie's been involved with so many projects out here, so many beautiful homes, and been in the business serving this community for as long as I can remember. So Charlie, what made you interested in doing this project?
Well, I started out in '82 renting the garden center next door from Jim Hopping, who lived here at the time. So I knew this property too well. And I've been driving by here and was watching the renovation, and I said that property, that place needs a context. It's lost everything is kind of gone around it.
Yeah.
So we're going to recontextualize it and have an overlay of historical interest, have an arboretum kind of interest to it, and also sustainability. We're purposely not putting in an irrigation system for the lawn. We're going to do a pre-World War II lawn, which will be organic, as well as enhancing the soils, getting back soil biology up, and feeding the soil. If it goes a little dormant in the summer, it's all right with us. We accept it. We know it's going to green up again, so there's going to be this natural cycle in the turf, and we're putting irrigation in to get the trees established, but all the trees should be hardy, and we wean them back off the water as they get established. And we're doing some nice work, I think, with comparing trees. We're going to do a deciduous conifer stand, which are redwoods, larches, bald cypresses, and cultivars of those species in one area, and up to 40 feet in terms of initially. Wow. So we're going to build a grove that people could actually go in the shade and look at the differences between the trees. We're doing two big lindens in the back, one silver, one European linden. So we're showing the differences between the two lindens. So, and I think, and we're talking to directors and everybody, that as we start doing this, we'll actually get a better understanding. We'll know even more what we're doing.
So how do you approach a project like this? I mean, I imagine you sort of walk the property, you start to think about it, start to imagine what it might be like with some mature trees on the property and creating some spaces where people can obviously see through, because we want the public from the sidewalks and from the roads to still be able to see the building. And then I guess you want things to feel like they're naturally placed here, like they maybe evolved over time. Are those some of the considerations?
That's great. Yeah, I mean, wandering around aimlessly is half my life, and again, driving past here and around this building, this garden that we're doing initially, the structure that we're putting in will be easily readable at 30 miles an hour from 60 feet, so that you can appreciate it. And part of the garden will be editing the views of the house to enhance the views of the house as well. So we show it from different shots and in a really focused way is what we're after as well in terms of placement. And we'll be putting everything in a process of a real scale model making to get this garden to work and have it proofed by the board above ground before we install it. So it's going to be this transformational, transactional, fun thing.
Do you think about what maybe Mr. Nathaniel Rogers might have had here in terms of orchards? Well, I mean, not orchids, but orchard, fruit trees and things like that. Is that part of the thinking? What might have been planted at the time? The historic period when the house was constructed?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, knowing that the deer weren't running so rampant in his period of time.
Right.
So we have to deal with the deer. But certainly there's magnolia selections that we're using that would have been in the 1880s kind of time period of planting, because it depends where the house goes back to Yeah, 17,
17
yeah,
something.
So again, there's different periods and trends of horticulture and planting.
Right, yeah,
So
that's
we'll
what-
kind of make it feel like there's some over time kind
So there
of.
is some sort of historic thinking to it.
Oh yeah, yep. No, that we want it to be appropriate historically, and also to have a life and character, not just nursery-grown trees that look sterile
Right.
and planted around that you'd see planted around any building. They should have a feeling to the building.
So maybe we'll walk a little bit and
Great.
maybe give me some of your thinking.
The facade of this building is everybody sort of that's called the money shot.
Yeah.
So we wanted to really have it poke out. But as we go around this side, this elevation goes into where everything comes together. We have Bilko doors, we have different additions that we're set on. So the idea of this first planting out here, these dwarf Romanti spruces, is to just break up and edit out the back view and let this front pop through
Okay.
and really frame it. And that's kind of what, and then behind there is going to be a gathering area, so it'll give a little privacy from the road, is how we started thinking about why these two plants ended up here. This morning I thought the bigger one was going to end up over there and the smaller one out here, but it didn't look right, so we switched them, and that's kind of what we'll keep doing. We'll keep proofreading the placement of these plants in this space as we're doing it.
So that's sort of, you put them down there before you dig the hole.
Oh,
just
absolutely, that's
sort
the
of-
way.
And you see how that feels. Maybe we'll walk over by
Sure.
these two trees.
Yeah, this is probably a 50-year-old spruce, even though it's, if it would be a standard Norway spruce, it would be 50 feet tall, 60 feet tall. So it's slow growing, and the town will have to ask me in 20 years to move it out a little bit, which I'll be happy to do.
You'll be here.
Now I have it on record.
Good, there you go.
So Jay has asked me and I said yes.
Okay, good. 20
Yeah,
years.
Yeah.
That's good.
From 20 years on, though.
Now, or do you have any edibles here, or, in terms of?
Not yet. I mean,
Is that part of the plan in terms of
Well, there-
gardens and?
like we're saying, this is going to evolve, and this is just the first phase to get the big structure up that holds those gardens. But there can be all kinds of thought
Okay.
going into it. I think everybody will kind of get, and maybe there'll be an enthusiasm, groundswell enthusiasm to start doing things. And
Okay.
certainly,
Roses might be pretty.
Yeah, again, deer.
Oh yeah, right.
We have to grow them above the deer browse line. There could be certainly an arch made out
Right.
of natural locust or something, or we could.
I just imagine a house that this period might have had a rose garden or something.
I'm sure, but yeah, we just have to. In that the deer fencing is there's not going to be any deer exclusion, and they live in the way back over there.
Oh, okay.
So they come out at night. So we have to be careful, but certainly, and then we have to look at maintenance. We don't want to have something that's hard to maintain.
Oh, that's true too.
We'll
Yeah.
maintain these trees.
Oh, you will.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
which honestly, there's not a lot of maintenance for what I'm doing.
Well, you said you weren't doing irrigation, right?
No, I'm purposely not doing irrigation in the turf. I want it to be a sustainable lawn.
But these will require
The
irrigation.
trees will have irrigation to get
Okay.
them established, and then over a period of 2 years plus, we'll wean them off the water, and the natural, they're fine in this environment without
Okay.
augmentation of water.
Okay.
So we're trying to make it a sustainable, which is historic. Historically there wouldn't be an irrigation system here.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
So
Let's walk around the perimeter a
Great.
little bit. And I guess you use some trees to block things that you might want to block, like like the gas valves. kind
yeah,
of
we're
thing.
going to take some of the heat off. There's going to be tardiva hydrangeas placed around these windows. So
hydrangeas,
and tall enough so they're above the deer browse line. They're the size of small umbrellas, beach umbrellas, so that we get the flowering to happen above. And we'll just got to break up this wall a little bit because this bottom of the top of the building's great, but the bottom of the building is a little lacking, right?
Sure.
Yeah, no fault of
it
its
could-
own.
It could add a lot.
Yeah, so we just
Absolutely.
want to fracture it out a little bit and make it more translucent. There's that stand of they're invasive Norway maples that is also a public hazard. They're growing up from an old stump, and the crotches are very unsafe, let's say.
These right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we're doing the stand of, replacing those with a stand of deciduous conifers.
They're tall though.
Yeah, well, we're bringing in some 40-footers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, again, the idea is to rebuild the scale of this property so it doesn't look like a new landscape. We can always add small once we have big,
Right.
but if we start with
So
small,
you want to make it look like it evolved over time.
at least, yeah, there's again a context for this building to sit in now too, that it has a place. Over here, we're going to try out an idea.
Oh, okay.
of, in this area of evergreen magnolias, grandifloras, because it's a very hot spot here and they love the companionship. They're evergreen, flower in the summer, and this is kind of a gathering place for events maybe in the future, overflow from reception type of thing. So and they're flat, kind of almost espaliered, and we'll certainly keep light in the building, but we're going to try out the idea. If it doesn't work, we'll play with it. We're not.
It's great to have your expertise. Yeah, how long have you been doing this?
46 years.
40, wow.
If,
It's really
dis-
incredible.
discounting my childhood.
And have you always loved green things? I guess your thumbs are pretty green.
Well, in retrospect, I grew up in Springs, and so I always cut firewood, did farm work, had a tractor,
Yeah.
and then went away to art school when I was in college and met my wife Kathleen, and then came out of there married and unemployed. So we just started
So
moving
you've
trees.
done well. I hear your son's an artist too, right?
Yes.
Silas?
Yeah, Silas works with us in the company and runs the gallery, and my other son Micah is the artist, and Tucker,
Okay.
my youngest son, is also an artist.
Okay, and you're an artist. This is art.
Well,
You
the
know,
process.
the way you approach it is very sculptural.
Well, it's model making, and that's what I studied in school, model making, and so this is just model making in real scale.
Right.
So we'll move things around top of the ground with my guys, and we'll have all kinds of signals.
It's
of-
fascinating. You not
know.
only have to think about placement, but you have to think sort of about how things evolve over time and change. Because these plants obviously grow, and will they crowd each other, and what will they look like not just today, what will they look like 20 years from now?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. We may have to move that spruce out for you in 20 years
Right.
plus, but if I moved it out there now, it wouldn't look right.
Right.
So gardens are always changing and moving and need attention. You know, they're not fixed.
So you must have to bring in some pretty heavy equipment to move these big trees around.
Yeah, a little bit iron. Yeah, a little bit iron. Yeah,
I think so.
but my guys are really well. We do it every day, and so and we expect to get it done within the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay. Wow.
Everything.
Yeah. Now, is it because the time of year, it's the right time to plant?
Well, and again, I like to move. There's a certain pace to getting it right too. You know, once I start laying out the plants, I want to lay them all out and get it to all work just right. I don't want to just lay out one and then wait. And, you know, I think
Right.
I think there's a momentum that is beneficial to getting it to look right. That to get the pattern to look right, if we get the pace right. So we'll play around with that. So I like to move once we get, and we have all the plants sitting. They're ready to make the crossing.
Now, you must
They're-
remember
they're
this
homeward
house.
bound.
This house, you probably have watched it through the years, right?
Oh, yeah. No,
I
I've
mean,
spent-
it fell into real disrepair. I mean, seems like most of my life I've just seen it deteriorate. And then, 10, 12 years ago, whenever that was, when the town stepped in, and to see it start to come back to life is really remarkable.
Oh yeah, amazing. I mean, there were 2x4s for as long in my memory that held the columns from
Yeah.
falling over into the gas station.
Yeah, I remember that too.
It's quite a transformation, and a nice one. Yeah, really
Yeah.
nice. And
Yeah.
the history is so nice because it wasn't originally all like this. It's been added on to and
Yeah, well, it's got to
changed
get
and-
torn down at one point. They wanted to build some kind of shopping plaza here, and
oh I
yeah,
didn't know,
and the town stepped in. This is back when Dennis Susskind was on the town board, and he helped put together, the team that acquired the property and for preservation. And a lot of town funds have come in through the Community Preservation Fund to do the historic restoration. And
Well, that's great.
it's taken time, but they wanted to get it right. So.
Well, when you think about in the whole history, it's very little time, right?
Right. No. Exactly. We're only here for a moment, right?
Yeah.
But,
and again, it's been here for 200 years. It only took 20 years. It's
Right.
less than
Exactly.
10%
Yeah.
almost.
Well, a lot of people will get to enjoy this property as a museum.
That's great.
Learn about some of the earlier architecture, and hopefully they'll enjoy all this landscaping that
Well,
you're going to put in.
It's
too.
interesting you say that, Jay, because we're going to have tags on the trees, so there's going to be an arboretum overlay into the property, so people can wander the grounds and learn trees and the difference between trees and similar types of trees, so
Great.
that there'll be that, and we'll kind of work on that idea as we continue to develop it. So it's going to be educational on the outside and let's say hopefully stimulating.
That sounds great. Well, Charlie, I can't say how grateful we are.
Oh, no.
The
Hey,
town is
the town's-
really.
the town's been great to me over the years.
We really appreciate what you're doing here, and we've been working on this property, and I just can't wait to see it after the landscaping is done. And it's really really generous of you. What you're
Well,
doing.
and it's my wife and I. You know, we're partners, and she's 80%.
Okay. I got it.
So.
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some pictures once it's all completed.
Yeah, or even during.
We'll add it hopefully to this
and
video.
And we're certainly open to critique and
Yeah.
criticism as we do it, and we're thick-skinned. So
Sure.
I'm soliciting everybody's
Well, right
opinion.
now it's a blank slate. You know, it's going to be really interesting to see what you do with all the plantings and how it transforms the property. So,
Well, now you're putting the pressure on me.
no, you can handle it. I'm not worried.
Okay.
You got the right guy for the job.
Thank you.